Sydney's Royal Botanic Garden has an amazing collection of plants, but one of the displays that I really love is the succulent garden. It has loads of desert-dwelling cacti and succulents that would look good in any garden, big or small. And with the weather warming up, it's the perfect time to get out there and appreciate these prickly and unique wonders. But first, here's what's on this week's show.
If you want a tropical feel for your garden, but like me, you live in a temperate climate, I'll show you some great ways that you can still get the look.
Helen Poinder purchased this country estate on the Hamilton Plains over 35 years ago. And she got in and started planting the gardens around it. But it was a massive job.
And I'm talking to a plant scientist who is a master of the mint family, a doctor of the discovery and description of new plant species that may well find a place in your garden in the future.
Meet two of my pals. They're the most beautiful dogs. This one here is called Hotch, and this little fella's called Frog. But you know, they should both really be called Lucky because they live in this most beautiful small garden. It's the result of a collaboration between a really clever garden designer and a very enthusiastic home gardener. When Vicky van der Ven and husband Nick bought in Melbourne's inner southeast 10 years ago, she inherited things like lawn, camellias and iceberg roses. It was not her style. She wanted a total revamp.
It had a lot of things that I really didn't want, and I had a lot of things that I did want. And for me to sort of work out how to do all that by myself was just a bit too taxing. So I thought, well, I definitely need somebody to help me.
And that's where Stephen came in.
That's where Stephen came in.
And so, Stephen, what was Vicky like as a client?
When you're working with someone who loves their garden as much as Vicky, it's really important to collaborate with the owner of the garden. And what I brought to the garden was a sense of structure. So then Vicky could use that structure to create and infill her own personality in between the pieces of structure. And I did that through mass planting and repeat planting of some of the plants around the garden.
So what we see here really demonstrates how a garden can be improved by using a professional designer. And though this garden does look good at the moment, in summer it is absolutely vibrant. Vicky and Stephen have divided the roughly 140 square metre L-shaped area into 3 spaces. The first is north-facing and sun-drenched. It really invites you to leave the indoor living area and immerse yourself in the garden. The climbing rose adorning the house is a real beauty. On the other side, the bougainvillea masks a fence, provides continuity and flowers for 8 months of the year. It seems to me there's a distinctly Mediterranean feel about this space.
Yes, I think that's probably right. And because of the warmth of the courtyard, we've been able to grow some citrus in pots and the olives, and it's made the whole garden have a bit of that feel.
And Vicky loves bright and bold colours, so we've got dahlias through there as well as sedum autumn joy, and that's countered with really lovely texture of the bechenarias and the euphorbias.
Something that is going to take anybody's eye is that mirror, because the effect of the mirror is to give you a garden that's twice as big as it really is, and a house that's twice as big as it really is.
Absolutely. When we renovated the house, the wall just lent itself to a great big mirror, brings the outside in, it makes people think that there's a whole nother garden beyond, and it brings a lot of light into the room.
Now, in this second area down here, you've got some interesting planting underneath these shade trees, Stephen.
Yeah, so to create a bit of uniformity and flow through the garden, I decided to plant some arthropodium, just mass planting of them, underneath these trees with a few aloes in front. And it works quite well because of the dapple shade of the trees. Normally this would be a very hot spot, but we've been able to create a cooler microclimate for them.
And I see over here you've got some irises and some other covers that benefit that. And Vicky, these trees are just lovely, aren't they? I mean, I noticed from up there that they are the perfect height to screen the houses opposite.
Yes, they really do the trick there. And I really, really love ruby lace gladitzias, and the no foliage in the winter. It lets you see the bark, the fabulous bark, and the beautiful form of the branches.
The third area is a small, intimate space suitable for relaxation or reflection.
Well, when I was young, I used to spend a lot of time with my grandparents in the weekends, and I used to always love hellebores, winter roses as we called them, and I used to love their dainty flowers and the foliage and things, and just really enjoyed them. The clivias have come from my parents' garden at Eltham. The elkhorn has come from my grandmother's garden, and it's sort of been going along in our family, chugging along for many years. The acanthus I've just always loved, and I know a lot of people think it's nearly like a weed, but it's fabulous, and when it's flowering in these shady spots, it does a really good job.
And is it all over? Have you finished the design and that's it?
No, because I'm a bit of a person who loves to keep on changing and doing different things, and Stephen and I have become friends along the journey, and we will continue to see each other, gardening or no gardening.
Well, that's really good news for garden designers like you and me, Stephen.
Oh yes, it is, and it's the enthusiastic gardeners like Vicky that allow us to rise to the challenge of creating these sorts of gardens, and the sort of challenges that we love every day.
Vicky's garden is well worth a look, and you'll be able to do just that in early November, because it is one of more than 30 gardens, great and small, chosen for this year's Garden Design Fest. Take a look at our website for details and get some great ideas for your place.
Passion fruit can take a while to ripen up, so how do you know when to pick them? Well, firstly, it's when they start to colour up, either yellow, red or black, depending on the variety. Next, give them a sniff. They start to smell sweet as they ripen. And then finally, you'll notice that a few will start to drop. Cut them in half, have a look at the pulp, give it a taste. If it's really sweet, then you are good to go.
You can take cuttings at any time of the year, but some plants do respond better at certain times. English box, for instance, and this lovely Laura petalum, they are done best in late summer and into autumn because the tips have hardened off, and that makes a beautiful cutting. In winter, you can take cuttings of all the plants that are deciduous. They've lost their leaves, like roses, grapes, figs, apples, even this deciduous hibiscus. Take a cutting of that. It might look like a dead stick with no leaves at all. Stick it in, it will grow.
It seems that whitefly are causing quite a number of gardeners some grief. Now, when you have small outbreaks, you can use yellow sticky traps and you hang those near the plants, and the whitefly have a fatal attraction for yellow, stick there and die. If they persist on plants, then you can use spraying oils. But if you do that, whitefly breed very fast, so you need to apply the spraying oil once every 5 days. And you do that when the temperature is 30 degrees or below, not during heat waves. Now, to get long-term control, personally speaking, I just let the whitefly carry on doing what they're doing because I know the smell that they give out while they're feeding on plants will be noticed by microscopic parasitic wasps, and they do a far better job at controlling whitefly in the long run than either spraying or any other remedy will give.
Ah, the tropics. Warm, balmy evenings, lush green foliage, brightly coloured flowers. It's a garden style that I love, but it's a bit tricky to create in a temperate climate like Adelaide, especially on a cold day. But there are ways, and I'm going to show you how with a few simple principles. The main way to do this is with layers. Create some depth, interest and tropical mystery by layering plants from the front of the garden to the back, and also from ground level right up high. Now, ideally, to get that tropical feel, we want a canopy. Trees are perfect. However, if you haven't got any trees, you can do the same thing with shade cloth. It's about giving protection to the plants underneath. Here at the Adelaide Botanic Gardens, they've got these magnificent 150-year-old Moreton Bay fig trees, and they are perfect to create a tropical feel, but a little bit big for your average garden. But you can look at other trees, even things like native frangipanis with their gorgeous glossy foliage and perfume flowers, or the bohinia or orchid tree. Trees also provide a framework for epiphytic plants to grow on, or even monsteras to scramble up. Now for the middle layer. To fill in the gap between the top and the bottom, we need to choose mid-level plants. So choose plants that have big, bold architectural foliage, like this philodendron. You could choose monstera, umbrella plants, scheffleras, or even fatsias or aralias. These plants give a tropical feel, yet they'll grow in a temperate region as long as there's no frost. But actually, you could choose any plant that has big, bold foliage, even like Roldana. For the lower layer, choose plants that will take dry shade and root competition and low light. Here, there are drifts of beautiful hardy ferns, but you could also use clivias, aspidistra or cast iron plant, Ophiopogon or liriope, and even the dwarf philodendron called Xanadu. Finally, no tropical garden would be complete without splashes of colour. Instead of tropical plants like gingers and heliconias, give an Abyssinian banana, Impatiens oliveri, or Strelitzia a go. So it's as easy as that. Even if you live a long way south, you can still have a taste of the tropics in your garden.
Helen Poinder purchased this country estate on the Hamilton Plains over 35 years ago. And she got in and started restoring this beautiful Italianate villa from the 1830s and planting the gardens around it. But it was a massive job. So she enlisted the help of her neighbour, Carleen. And over the years, they've created something truly special. The garden is a series of formal rooms divided by hedging, and diverse and beautiful plantings entice you to explore. So what did you find when you first got here?
Well, a derelict house and a paddock with a few trees. And this has been a very dry area, but Tino, you seem to have brought some rain.
Oh, it's the least I could do. So, Carleen, you came in a little bit later, is that right?
Yes.
What were your first impressions when you saw the place?
These gardens weren't here. I just used to mow this as a dry paddock. Yeah, and then she was going to sell it because she weren't coping. But
once Carleen came to help, it was okay.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you did.
Yes, yeah, no, it was good.
So how would you describe this garden?
Well, it's an English garden of rooms. I measured it all and planned it out. And this garden's the White Garden. It's Blanche's garden. It's named for my mother. And the icebergs are wonderful here. They're the ubiquitous icebergs. But on the other hand, this garden gets a lot of wind and the icebergs cope with it, whereas most other plants can't.
And I love the use of your foliage as well,
yes.
with that more silvery foliage.
Yes, there's the silver and there's the gold of the hops. So, Tino, this is really a white and green garden.
It's also a touch of yellow.
I think... Oh, yes. Beautiful, isn't it?
So are there any particular plants that you're truly proud of?
Clematis.
Yeah.
Yes, they do well here.
They're all
beautiful. This is more of a clambering one.
And provides great colour.
And into the persicaria.
Yeah.
We find that that's a good colour with other bright colours around it. This is Madam Hardy, and I love her little green eye in the centre.
Yeah,
and also the buds have a beautiful shape.
We chopped that clean off because it was huge.
Yep.
And look at it now.
Well, in a lot of ways, roses respond really well to that hard cut.
Yes, they do.
Yep.
And then down here, there's a strand here, and it's called Hadspin Blood.
Oh, wow, great name.
I think we first saw it at Kiftsgate, didn't we, Caroline?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a good border plant.
So what's it like working with Helen in the garden?
I'm probably a bit different to Helen. I like to get in and have a good go.
Carleen likes to be very tidy. I like things to be sort of more lush and romantic and not tidy. If I had it all my way, you wouldn't be able to get through the garden,
No.
probably.
So once it's cut, isn't it?
Yes.
But it will grow back.
Yes, yes.
These delphiniums in here are absolutely gorgeous. What's your trick?
You must keep them moist, but I just love them for the beautiful iridescent blue they are and their little black eye. It's just a lovely plant, I think.
And I like the little supports you've got for them.
Yes. Well,
yeah.
Carleen's husband made those for us.
We just tie them in when they're
Yes,
hanging out.
yes.
Yeah, and it keeps them from blowing over in
yeah,
such a
yep,
windy
yes,
spot.
yes.
And this stacky's this lamb's ear, isn't it?
Yes, and the bees love them. Look at this one there.
I mean, really, with a plant like this, you don't need a pet.
No.
Because they're just so
No.
soft, and you can see how they get their name, the lamb's ear.
They're perfect lambs here.
Yeah, there is that.
Well, we're not frightened to tell each other what we think.
Wow, this room, it's very Italianate.
It is. Carleen and I went to Italy and fell in love with the gardens and came back and decided we'd have our own bit of Italy here.
And the robinias look amazing, and the lines of the English box and then the pebbles underneath. It's very minimalist. It's great. How's the citrus go in such an exposed site?
Well, we cover them for the winter, but after that they're fine. Have lemons on them.
With hard work and a friendship that's spanned decades, Helen and Carleen have proven that you can grow a stunning oasis even in the harshest of climates.
We'll start with this one here. Yep.
Something that we can enjoy doing, other people love coming to see it. Yes, it's very rewarding.
We like doing the same thing, and frost, snow, rain. Yeah.
Succulents are the perfect plant choice for water-wise and low-maintenance gardens and can be used in pots, planter boxes or garden beds. This mass-planted cotyledon orbiculata creates a wonderful cascading border, and the blue-grey works perfectly with the rusted steel. Aloes have a really strong architectural look. They're also drought tolerant, and the flowers look great with their hot, bright colours. Agaves are a large family of succulents with many different uses. Some of them are used for their stemless, fibrous leaves, and that fibre is turned into rope. Other species are plantation grown for their valuable sap, which creates that world-renowned tequila. And then you've got others that are used to create soap and shampoo. In this case, we've got a small growing agave called Agave flexispina. It has a really lethal spike on the end, but the bit that I like most about it is that the shape of the lower leaf is imprinted like a tattoo onto the leaf above it, and the blue colour is just stunning. Cacti, succulents and sunny weather go together. So if you're in Sydney, it's really worth getting down here and taking a look at this garden. Or better still, get out and plant some at your place.
Shake a family tree and you never know what might fall out. There's often a surprise or two in store. The mint family, Lamiaceae, contains some of our best-known herbs. Plants such as oreganos, sages, lavenders, the list goes on. But there's a whole lot of Australian members of the family as well. Westringers, native mint bushes, and there are even native Plectranthus. I want to introduce you to a man who's made it his life's work to study some of the newly discovered Australian members of this family. Meet Dr. Trevor Wilson, a young scientist with a passion for botanical research. While the mint family has been in cultivation and widely studied for hundreds of years in the Northern Hemisphere, Trevor's mission is to explore the poorly understood Australian members of this fascinating family.
The Australian mint bush was a great place to start. It's got flowers that are visited by a whole bunch of different pollinators, right? So some are visited by birds and some are by insects, and I wanted to know more about that. And then from there, I went into trying to understand different plants in the mint family.
Recently, Trevor's focus has been on Plectranthus, a large and widely distributed genus with an ever-expanding list of Australian species.
The big question about Plectranthus is, well, for Plectranthus, probably in the 70s, there was about 18 species recognized. And now we're sitting at 48 species known in Australia, and there's probably more.
Wow. In the glasshouse, Trevor has around 35 species of Plectranthus growing, many of which he collected in the field and some that are as yet unnamed.
Well, this is a Plectranthus similar to a species that we already know, but it's got a few different characteristics that potentially might make it a different species. The obvious one is the absolutely enormous tuber that we have, or that it grows at its base. A bigger tuber than I've ever seen before in an Australian Plectranthus.
Oh, that is an amazing lemon scent. Those essential oils are a real identifying feature of the Lamiaceae, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And the smells are coming from those volatile oils that are being housed in glands and cells across the leaves and stems. And there's a lot of potential in Australian species as well that we don't actually know about yet.
This one. That's toilet cleaner?
Yeah, definitely.
That's kind of pineapple-y.
Yeah. That's good. I think that too.
So you think some of those oils really could be economically important?
Yes, definitely. There's a history of literature already for a lot of other Plectranthus species showing potential pharmaceutical uses for some of these species that are native to India and Africa. But there's not much known yet about what Australian Plectranthus potential has. This plant is a species that we don't know yet. I think it's a new species. We found it up in northern Queensland on one of our trips last year.
Back in the laboratory, we're viewing Trevor's most recent discovery under the microscope for the very first time. What are you seeing, Trevor?
Well, we're looking at the stem of Plectranthus at the moment. So we've got nice long multicellular hairs, and as I scroll through here, zoom through here, there's these little lollipops that you see down below. Mm-hmm. Those are glandular hairs. And the little tip, or the little round tip, should be the cell that's containing all the essential oils that we smell.
So what are you thinking? Is this a new species?
What I have to do is compare this type of canopy of hairs with all the other types of species and double check to make sure. I think it is between you and I, but we have to go through the right process of establishing unique characteristics for this entity.
Given the vast area of Australia, how many new species could be out there?
Well, as my colleague puts it, if you're going to go out in the field and collect, just go to any rock outcrop because there's potentially a new species on each of these mountains across a range. So I hazard to put a number on it, but there will be more than just a couple more species of Plectranthus described in the next little while, that's for sure.
If you've missed an episode of Gardening Australia, you can always catch up wherever you are and at any time on iView. And there's plenty going on social media too. So get involved and join in the fun on Facebook and Instagram. That's it for this week. Let's have a look at what's coming up on next week's show.
Some people collect stamps, others collect model trains. I'm going to introduce you to a couple whose plant collection circumnavigates the globe.
Don't you think that presents that you've made yourself have a personal dimension you just don't get from store-bought? I've got some ideas for the gift-giving season that are both nifty and thrifty.
I've got to tell you that with summer just around the corner, I'm getting excited. It's the perfect time to get out into the backyard and spend some time with family and friends. I'll be giving you a few tips on how you can avoid that special time being spoilt by these unwanted guests.